Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, family. My name's Bob, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, I was asked yesterday to do this workshop, and hopefully someone will gain some insight into who I am and what this program has done for me through my experience today. I came in here April 15th, 1997, and I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you that it's possible to stay clean one day at a time and not have to use again. And that's the message that was given to me when I got here, that relapse is not a requirement, that it doesn't have to happen. And the topic, growth through change. I'd like to say that when I got here, you know, that I started to grow, but I'd be lying to you. You know, actually, when I got here, I wasn't sure I wanted to stop using. Those that know me, Dan and some others in here, remember I was a vice president of a motorcycle club when I got here, and I thought that if I came to a couple of meetings, you guys were going to show me how to use successfully, that it's going to teach me how to go out on the weekend and have a couple of beers and do a couple lines and go home, because that wasn't possible. And you put up with me for the last 11 plus years and allowed me to grow up in here, and I need to thank you for that. You know, because there was a lot of times in here where if it was reversed, I wouldn't have put up with me. A lot of the behaviors, you know, that got me to the dope are still here. I continue to struggle with them, try and grow through them. And there's been a lot of lessons, some I've learned and some I continue to learn with your help. I was a fourth son, born to Queenie and Edward Montgomery. You can use my last name if you want to. I don't care if it gets somebody in here. God bless them. All three of my older brothers are dead from this disease. I have 31 ex-club brothers that are dead from this disease. It has taken bigger people than me, smarter people than me, handsomer people than me. I know that's hard to believe, but you know, it does not discriminate, doesn't care whether you're white, brown, yellow, green. It will kill you. And we bury a lot of people around here who think that they can do one more. I'm not of that illusion. You know, if I never ever have a drink or a drug again, it'll be just fine with me. But I try and do this one day at a time. And some of the lessons that I've learned by staying here is that what I'm working on today, you may have already worked on, or you haven't, and you're going to work on it down the road. You know, we're all not, this is not a cookie cutter recipe. That what I'm struggling with today is anger. You know, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I didn't learn what anger was. I go right to rage, and I struggle with that still. That's the lesson that I'm working on today, and hopefully I'll be able to use the steps to work on this problem. It's worked on a lot of other problems, and I think that if I continue to work on this, they will be eliminated also. Some of the issues and some of the problems that I worked on early on was not being equal. When I got to the rooms, I thought I was different than you. I was either better than you or worse than you, and that allowed me to not have to listen to you, to your suggestions. You know, the suggestions didn't apply to me. You know, I was unique, and the truth was I was wearing a mask so that you really couldn't get close to me. And it was revealed to me after getting 5 years clean that most people didn't think I was here to recover. They thought I was looking for someone. And I would come in and sit down at a table, and most people would get up and go to a different table. And that's okay, because I'm still here today. And, you know, through that process of change, you know, I had to give up that lifestyle. I stayed in a motorcycle club for 5 years thinking I could show those guys how to live. And you can't show anybody who doesn't want to see this. I would go down and hang out at the clubhouse, and you guys would tell me, you're going to relapse, you're going to relapse. And I would say, and the truth was, that was just part of my recipe. I had to do that in order to get to the point where being at a meeting was more enjoyable than sitting down there listening to somebody tell me the same stupid story 27 times with their jaws going, and they weren't even there. And through that process of change, I no longer am involved in that lifestyle. This is my lifestyle today. I had a young lady who followed me in here, and we tried to have, I think they refer to it as a relationship.
Say it, Bobby, say it.
But actually, it was just a cohabitation of two sick individuals because neither one of us had done any work. And through that process of change, she found this young stud that just got out of prison and dumped me. And I know that's hard to believe. Probably if I'd have treated her better, who knows what would have happened. But that's just the process. Anyhow, he's back in the joint doing 10 to 20, and she's back using. And I'm still here. And that's just part of that process. And what I learned from that was what Matt talked about last night, was the unconditional love. That no matter where she's at, what's going on, doesn't change the way I feel. And I can have that for another human being today. And when I got here, I couldn't let you know that. I couldn't show you the tears. My 3 older brothers taught me that, real men don't cry. That if you want something to cry about, I'll give you something to cry about. And all that bullshit that we learned as young men that we carry into our older life, into our relationships with other men, and not allowing women close to us. And so today, that's one of the lessons that I had to learn here. Another lesson that I had to learn, was empathy, and tolerance and patience. Because don't you know, you're supposed to be working my program. And the truth is, I don't even know what program I'm working half the time. I'm just staying clean and trying to do the next right thing, clean house and help others. And that affords me, a wonderful, wonderful life that I never, ever dreamed possible. If you'd have told me 11 years ago that I'd still be down here at Camp Mac doing a talk, on a beautiful day, I would have probably socked you in the eye, because that's not what I came in here to do. I didn't come in here to bare my soul and tell you that I'm just a scared little kid who never grew up. That I wasn't a big, bad biker. I was a little mouse who ran from everything his whole life. I covered up with alcohol, dope, women, violence, crime, just so I wouldn't have to look at me. And today, I don't care what you think about me, because for the first time in my life, I like who I am. I'm not a bad person. I just did some bad things. One of the other lessons I learned was that I don't know where you guys got your PhDs from, but I got some deep-seated issues that need professional help. And I had to go see some counselors, 3 of them to be exact. The first one because of that relationship. And, without getting too in-depth, it was a female counselor, and she took a look at my past. And she had me make a list of 10 characteristics that I was looking for in a soulmate. That was real easy to do. Then she had me make a list of 10 characteristics that I was willing to bring to a relationship. I could come up with 4. She came up with 15, but I don't feel them. And therein lies the problem. If you pay me a compliment, you'll hear it hit the table. I'll give you 17 reasons why you shouldn't compliment me. Because the core of my disease is not self-centeredness, it's self-hatred. Got a little news flash for you. People who sit on milk crates until your ass says Dairy Maid, trying to smoke an empty antenna or stick a vein that ain't there, don't know anything about self-love. And that's what I had to get to. And that's part of that change, part of that growth process. And, finally made that list of 10 characteristics, and was down in Baltimore, Maryland, Thanksgiving, doing a talk at a convention down there, and this young lady came and sat next to me in a restaurant, and we started talking, and she had her own motorcycle, had 2 jobs, on a scale of 1 to 10, she was an 11, and blah, 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 and we started kicking it. And I remember what the counselor told me. She goes, when you can identify the 10 that you're looking for and the 10 that you're willing to bring to a relationship, she said, the third key is try being friends for a year before you sleep with them. Now, I heard that's possible. Don't know anybody who's done it, but I heard it's possible. And so we became friends. And she would come up to Detroit, and I'd go down to Baltimore and blah, blah, blah. To make a long story short, after about 6 months, we couldn't stand each other. But today we're still friends because we didn't sleep together. And, that's part of that growth that they talk about around here. And another lesson that I learned was never to say no to Narcotics Anonymous, because Narcotics Anonymous has never said no to me. And, I was asked to play Santa Claus at a Narcotics Anonymous dance over in Macomb County. And Santa Claus wasn't really what I wanted to do when I came here. I didn't really care a whole lot for children, mine or yours. And I went to that dance. I got all dressed up in the red suit, and we have a tradition over there of buying gifts for all the children at the dance. So I drug this bag of gifts across the dance floor, and the DJ handed me the microphone. And for some ungodly reason, I said, okay, all the boys and girls that have been good this year, I want you to line up over here. And all the boys and girls that have been bad this year, I want you to line up over here, thinking they'd all go to the good line, but they didn't. Half of them went to the bad line. Now we're talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids who already think they're bad, who are standing there staring at their shoes. Messed me up, guys. Messed me up. They'd come up and sit on my knee. Santa Claus, how come you're crying? So, well, you're not really bad, are you? Well, my mom and dad tell me I am. Which group do you think's coming into the rooms? Because I thought I was one of those bad kids. I don't know about you guys. I'm talking about me. I thought I was one of those bad kids. If you really knew who I was, you wouldn't be in these rooms. All that stuff that, before I got here was embedded in here, that I was resigned to die in the lifestyle, in prison, shot, whatever. I had resigned myself that that's the way I was going to go. And you people taught me that I don't have to live that way, that I can have a beautiful life, that I do deserve to be happy, joyous, and free. And I just got back from a retreat down in Key West. I love to travel. I've been very successful in the business that I have. It's a medical supply business. And we have 12 locations in Michigan, which affords me the opportunity to travel. And my girlfriend and I just got back from Key West, and we drove all the way down there to hear a speaker from Oakland County. But one of the things that stuck out to me that he said, and I'm going to share it with you because, everything I've talked about today, I just plagiarized from one table or one convention or another. You really don't want to know what was up here before I got here. There was nothing spiritual going on. My running partner is down in Coleman, Florida, doing 4 lives plus 80 years. All right? The difference between him and me is grace. If I got what I deserved, I'd be in the cell next to him. But what this gentleman said down there in Oakland County, from Oakland County, was, we go to a lot of meetings and we hear a lot of people talk about being grateful. A lot of people start off by saying, I'm a grateful addict named blah, blah, blah. And what he said, and I'm sure he stole it from somebody else because he's not any more intelligent than I am, was if you're truly as grateful as you say you are, there would be a line to be a coffee maker. There'd be a line to be a secretary. There'd be a line to be a GSR. There'd be a waiting line to get involved in service. Dan's from that area where we come from, and Chuck, and we did a service workshop over there to try and get more people involved in service. And we had everybody stand up there for 15 minutes and explain each position. And the only people that showed up were service junkies. But, we hear that grateful term thrown around kind of like love. People throw that love term around. I did a talk at Merckna with a friend of mine, Charlie, and the topic was love or lust. And I don't know about you guys, but I tend to get those confused. And that's part of that growth process that we learn when we're supposed to learn here. The second counselor that I went to go see was because I had never grieved. Like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't let you see me cry. As a matter of fact, before I got here, I've been married for 21 years. My wife asked me to do a eulogy because her mother died, and it was this big Catholic church, and there was about 300 people because her last name was Kennedy from all over the country that came in. And she asked me to do the eulogy. And I'm in this Catholic church, and her mom's in the casket over here. And I'm reading this eulogy like it's the menu at Big Boys. All right? Now all these people are crying and sniveling, and I put the menu or the eulogy down. Because I just wanted to get back down to the clubhouse. I didn't want to hear anybody sniveling, didn't really care for the lady much anyhow. And I said to my wife, why'd you ask me to do that anyhow? And she says, because I knew you wouldn't feel. Yeah. And then I went down to the clubhouse, proceeded to do what we do. But that was one of the things that came back to me through working the steps to show me, that we can become real cold. We can shut off those feelings and not have to identify them or work on them. And we can do that in recovery too. That rage that I talk about that I work on today, the third counselor that I had to go see, I was up at Higgins Lake at a retreat, Mother's Day retreat, and it's like this. It's beautiful. It's pristine. You've got the lake, you got the woods, you're in touch with nature. And when I left there, I was like, floating. And then I got home and I hit the button on the answering machine. And 3 people said, you better stay away from Rick. He's going to beat your ass. And all that spirituality just went right out the window. I went to the meeting the next day and I beat his ass right in the meeting. Yeah, yeah. How spiritual was that? And that's 6 years clean. And I struggle with that today still. Because I can be, just as calm as can be and then go right to stupid in a heartbeat. And that second counselor that I went to see, she did some hypnotism work and took me back to when I was 14 months old. I was walking around the house, and for you older people in here, I had a stick horse. Anybody remembers a stick horse with the yarn hair and the plastic head? Yeah. And I had the blanket with my thumb in my mouth, and I was just cruising around the house, And I got to talk to 2 of my deceased brothers and my father, and the message that I got back from them was just keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right road. And so you know, even though I still struggle, and I don't think I'll ever arrive, some of the character defects that I struggle with today, they may bury me with. Because as Pam points out sometimes, there's usually a benefit in it. Otherwise, I'd gladly let it go.
Right.
Gladly. You know, I'm comfortable with that rage. You know, because then I can keep you out here. And I don't have to let you know that, you know, I'm just that scared little kid who never grew up. You know, that when my older brothers, you know, put that pint of orange vodka in my knapsack when I was going to Boy Scout camp, you know, I truly belong here. You know, I learned from them how not to feel, how not to show emotions, you know, how not to show love. And through you, I learned the opposite. You know, I learned that I can come up here and share about whatever's going on in my life, just like Matt did last night. And somebody out here is going to have the answers. You know, that's my experience. I hope someone benefited from it. I love you and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend up here.
Thank you, Bob. You told my whole story honestly. I mean, the stuff I'm going through and this, I got here last night. I didn't know I was going to make it because of my surgery. And it's been a rough year. Jeez. But the things you talked about, anger and all that, that's what I'm going through this year. Jeez. And that's what I'd really like to talk about. You know, the change for me is this year. Even though I've been in recovery quite a while, the major changes has been this year that told me what really recovery is. Because I haven't really made meetings a lot because we justify it. You know, college, wife, kids, job. You know, we make a list. I make a list a mile long. But I still do make meetings. I don't make them in my home area of Elkhart. I go to South Bend. And I told one person, I said, I like the South Bend. I love the Elkhart meetings because there's a lot of people there that I got clean with. You know, I mean, it's amazing. There's a group of us that we grew up together. We all have about the same amount of clean time. But I go to meetings in South Bend and they don't have that much. But the benefit I get is, and it's the growth of change, that newcomer, I know if I'll be that person that came in the door. You know what I mean? That's what I hear from them. And my defect of character is I'm blunt. I mean, and I feel bad, and I tell my wife some things I've said to addicts, and she says, "Why'd you say that?" I said, "Because I'm blunt. I don't know how to," because she has a master's in psychology, so she can call you stupid, but not say you were stupid. And I'm the one I call you stupid, you know, and get you mad, and like you said, we'll be in an argument and face to face. But recovery has taught me so much. I mean, geez, all the wonderful people I meet here every year. Like I said, I didn't know I was going to make it because of my neck surgery. And Monday I went to the week before that I called Derek and said, "Hey, Derek, I know I got to humble myself, you know, this humbling thing." I said, "I may not be able to get to the convention, but I'd like to come Saturday for the speaker, but I really won't know until the 19th because I go see my neurosurgeon to find out where I'm at on my neck surgery." And he put me in this collar instead of the hard collar so I can drive. And the addict I am, like I was telling people at breakfast, the male ego, we got my wife's car out of the garage and we put it up for the winter and it isn't running right. And here I'm trying to get here. We have 3 vehicles and she was telling me, "Well, you're not supposed to go, you know." And I said, "Well, I don't know, let me think about it." And she said, "Well, you need to pray about it." And she said, "You know, the guy's trying to tell you the car's not running right, you're not supposed to go." And like I told him at breakfast, I didn't have enough guts to call her on the phone and tell her I called State Farm and put insurance on the other vehicle. So when I see her, I got to be honest. That's changed. You know, say, "Well, I put the insurance on the van, I'll see you Sunday." But I'll get back to this year, you know, the change, like Bob was talking about. I had a lot of anger. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I was pushing my wife and my 11-year-old and my 3-year-old, she's 4 now, away. I was talking to another addict, and my family wouldn't even get near me because I was so angry. I didn't realize I was portraying this anger from childhood. You know, stuff that I grew up, like you were saying, you know, the dysfunctional family, getting your butt beat all the time, active addiction, you know, and you hold that inside, you don't want to get rid of it. So about August last year, I was lying to my wife saying I was going to work. I wasn't going to work. I was holding up in the basement, wasn't taking a shower. I was like, my whole world was collapsing. I didn't know what was going on. So I finally broke down and went and got professional help, turned myself in. It's like, and that's 18 years clean. I'm like, man, my whole world is, you know, you were supposed to have this all together, you know, the steps and all that. And I broke down and went and got for professional help and found out it was because of my childhood, anger, resentment, because why did I have to grow up this way? Why would I always have to hit you in the nose because you said something I didn't like, or, you know, and I wasn't that type person, you know, and like I said, my 3-year-old wouldn't even come near me, you know, she'd stay way away, my wife would stay away, my 11-year-old would stay away, and I'm like, why aren't they getting near me, you know, why, you know, but I'd be, you know, angry, very upset, very pissed off. But the change was I finally realized I needed help, and I went and got the help, and I'm very blessed I have a job that has very great insurance that allowed me to go to a 30-day program, you know, not work and go to a 30-day program. And they taught me a lot. Professional help did. And it's not that Narcotics Anonymous hasn't taught me nothing, like Bob was saying. I just needed somebody that had more experience that knew what was going through this stupid head. And what it came out to be was, for 18 years in recovery, I found out I had racing thoughts. Everything revolved around my brain would never stop slow enough for I could process. You know, and being an addict, I didn't want to take medication. Like, well, can you do this without taking medication? They said, no, you need to take this to slow down your brain, and we'll wean you off of it if it's possible. You know, and it was amazing. About a week later, my brain stopped. It's like I always used to be 3 blocks ahead of the stop sign. You know, I'd be thinking that far ahead, and I never realized it, you know, until the professional said, this is what you need, and you're very angry. And then the medication kicked in, and they're weaning me off of it. I'm way down on it now. But my life changed. Like when I first got in recovery, you know, it's like not doing drugs anymore. My brain stopped. Now I can process, you know, and my 3-year-old daughter now, she'll walk up and get in my lap. You know, I started crying. You know, it's like, wow. You know, I don't have to ask her to come get a hug. She'll walk up and give me a kiss, and I'm her daddy, and I'm not that guy with all this anger. You know, and I was going to meetings a lot at that time because I wasn't working, you know. But I mean, this program taught me that to reach out when you need help, you know, to ask for help, you know, and then I found out about my neck. You know, it's like I was at work and I thought I was getting old and getting carpal tunnel and didn't want to say nothing, miserable, in pain every day, taking my ibuprofen thinking that'll take care of it. And then you get humbled again when you can't move. So I went to the doctor and he said, you got a deteriorating neck. They had to weld 4 vertebrae in my neck together 6 weeks ago. And that was a humbling experience. You know, it was scary as hell. You know, they tell you can be paralyzed, you not talk, you got all this list of stuff that can happen. And there's a guy in South Bend that I talked to about it. But you know, my God told me, he said, well, you got to do it. I mean, you can't, your hands are numb, your legs are going numb, you know, everything's happening, so you better do it. And I'm grateful I did. You know, and that's changed. I wouldn't have done it before. I would have used drugs and all that, you know. And the scary part of the whole thing was, being an addict, I was scared of the medication. You know, that old get surgery and you have to do the medication. But I'm very blessed with a wife. Like I said, she has a psychology degree and she's been in recovery. She has 20 years. So, I mean, and I give her the authority and give her everything. I said, you know, when I come home with the medication, she went and filled the prescription. She hit them. She just gave me out what I needed. But the amazing thing with my higher power was, he gave me the strength that I didn't get high. it's on, it's like I told her, I said, it amazed me to the max. I took the dosage they said, the times they said, but I didn't really have to take all of it. But I never got that high because he blessed me with that, not getting that high, and I asked for that. I said, just don't let me get that feeling again, so I'll chase it. And, and that's the change, that he, and having a wife and people in recovery, that process worked. And I think that's why it took this long in recovery for my neck to get bad, because if it had happened 3 years or 2 years, I'd be out chasing the horse again, But, and I think these things happen for a reason. When things happen in our life, that's at the stage that we're ready to accept and confront it. Like the childhood stuff, I wasn't ready to accept and confront it. And they made me write my childhood. They said, well, write your history. 10 pages later, it's like, boy, and I even left some stuff out, and that looks pretty bad. And then they told me I had to give it to someone to read. And I did, and that person, and I'm like you, Bob, it's like, I don't want to take compliments. I thought, well, this is normal childhood, and they're like, man, that's really rough. And I'm like, I blew it off. It's like, oh, that ain't rough. That was just life in general. That's why I knew how to grow up. And I don't like empathy. I don't like being the one that gets the empathy and all that. But I'm learning. I'm learning how to cry. Those tear things, and that's the good things, in life and being in recovery. The change. And I'm so grateful for that. It's like, geez, if I wouldn't change, you get stagnant. That's like the last 5 years coming here. I really haven't hit workshops because it's more of a dad-son, because a lot of people know I bring my son, but he's at home. I'm going to pick him up tomorrow. It's more of a dad-son weekend, because it's like, I know he's going to get older and he ain't going to want me around no more because I'll be an embarrassment and a hindrance and all that good stuff. So I figured, I have the power, I can I can enforce it on him. But he's changing along with me, and growing up in a recovering household, he doesn't have to experience mom hitting him with 2x4s, whatever she get her hand on, beating the hell out of him. He has a healthy lifestyle, which I can call that today, healthy, because of me and my wife trying to teach him what healthy is, which I don't know. I'm learning today. I'm changing into healthy lifestyle, but I'm just, like I said, my higher power, when I do call God, has blessed me so much, let me come this year, even though, with my neck and all that, and I have a wonderful wife, and I don't tell her that. I know she gets upset because she says, well, you tell everybody else I'm a wonderful person, but you don't tell me I'm wonderful. And that's that male ego. It's hard to, it's like, well, I show you you're wonderful. I bring you your paycheck home every week. I do the dishes. I help do the laundry, keep the house clean. Doesn't that mean that you're wonderful? But
Sorry, nice try.
that's what she says, the same thing. She says, no, you have to tell me. Women like to hear we're wonderful, And I'm learning that too. I'm learning to change on that, and I'm learning to be honest with her, and I don't try to work her program now. I don't try to, what she does is what she does, and what I do is what I do, but it intertwines together. But, and I like to tell the story of how I met her. I met her in recovery. It was really, I didn't tell her this till we were married for 5 years. I said, the first time I ever seen my wife, I was in Elkhart at a meeting. They used to meet in the basement, and that's back when you could smoke in the rooms, and I don't smoke. But when you went in, you couldn't even see the back wall because of all the cigarette smokers. You could cut the smoke. And I was with another lady because I just got clean. I was probably clean maybe 60 days, and one of them things like, oh, I got clean, and I knew her from active addiction, and like, hey, how you doing? And we got together when Bob, you were talking about, and this lady walked down the steps, and I didn't even know who she was. And in the back of my head, it's the honest to God's truth. I said, you're going to marry that person. I didn't know who she was. She just walked down the steps. And back then, there was a group of us that would go to all these dances and all this stuff. And she was one of the ones that went because she was in college getting her degree in psychology. And my sponsor, he had a crush on her, which I didn't know. because they were real good friends. And about 2 years later, we started dating, and then 2 years more later, we got married. And that's been 16 years ago we were married. You know, but it's not easy to be married in a relationship for 16 years in recovery. I'm not gonna lie to you, you know, but that's a growth and that's change. You know, I can learn to be with my wife, and we do things, and it's changed. You know, we can accept each other for who we are, and it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. And I didn't tell her that for, like I said, 5 years. I said, when you came down the steps, something told me we were going to get married, you know, and was, like I said, we started dating and we got married. And the only reason we got married early was because my mom was dying of cancer. Because she didn't want to get married. She said, I got to date somebody for 3 years, and that's my law. Then I will look at getting married. And I said, well, my mom's dying. I'd like to get married before she dies. And would you marry me? And she agreed because of that reason. You know, it wasn't because of all this. So she had her set what she wanted. And if people know my wife, we're both stubborn people. My kids are stubborn. But, you know, but we were blessed, you know, and the changes we've been through. I mean, I've tried to run her and my kids off because of not active using, it's addictive personality. You know, doing things because I didn't want her to get to know me. It was easier just to have the sexual relationship with her instead of having the intimate relationship that we have today. You know, that's the only thing I thought of. But after over the years, I learned that I wouldn't want to be with anybody else but her, and that's a good change. Even though she gets upset, because, well, you talk to all these women. I said, I may talk to them, but you're the person I want to be with. I have no desires or nothing. You know what I mean? I really don't. And it's amazing, you know, it's like, I wouldn't give up what I have with you today for anything. It's not worth it. What's worth 5 minutes of pleasure versus 16 years of marriage with a person I really truly love? I mean, I didn't know what love was. You know, the program taught me what real true love is. You know, and I would never be able to tell people that. You know what I mean? It's like that male ego thing. It's like, well, she's my wife, you know, she's over here and I'm over here. But it's true. I mean, today I know it's true love. I mean, it's not nothing else, you know. And like I say, I'm very blessed with 2 wonderful kids, a 4-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I'm 50. I'll be 60-some years old when my daughter graduates, you know. I said, I'll be looking like Grandpa going down when she graduates high school. But you know what? That's okay. You know, you know, and the changes are that I can be a parent. I can work this program to the best of my ability. It may be not what you think I should work it, but it's the best I know how to work it, and that's okay. And like right before I got here, the last thing I like to talk about is my sponsee. When I had my surgery, I knew he was having a rough time. I had surgery, got out, and a week later I was back in the hospital with pneumonia and a list of stuff that happened all of a sudden, you know. And I got out of the hospital after that week, and I called a person I know in South Bend that I really like, and I asked him, I said, have you seen my sponsee around? And he said, well, I'll call around and find him, and found out he relapsed. I'm like, oh man, I knew you were having a rough time. But that's not on me. That was his choice. You know, and I told him, I said, you know, the convention's coming up. You lost your job, you lost everything on this relapse. Come down for the day. I haven't heard from him since. But, you know, I'm not chasing him because my sponsor told me that. I can't chase him. He's the one that has to come to that realization, and that's changed. Because I used to want to save the world. It's like run him down, jerk him out of the dope house, and, you know, say, get your butt sitting here, you know, you need this. But, you know, today it's like, I just pray for him. I hope you get it together. You learn what you need. You had almost 2 years clean. And I tried to tell you that 2-year mark is a hard mark. You know, I said, but it doesn't matter how much clean time you have. But you gotta want this stuff. Don't fake it. It's gotta be truthful, heartfelt. But I'm just glad to be here this weekend. And with that, I'll, you know, be quiet and let other people share. But I'm just grateful for all you people being here. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Ray for such an inspiring message. Before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you do not wish to be taped, please let me know so that the tape can be turned off. We have approximately 15 minutes late, so I will open the floor for any sharing.
Morning, I'm an addict named Carol. This is really kind of interesting because I've made myself a commitment to change, and it happened within the last hour. And I found myself for the third time since I got here last night being drawn into the same identification as, not as a person or as an addict, but my injuries, my illnesses. And actually in competition. Well, I did this and I've done that to myself and I've been hurting this way and, my bones, my broken vertebrae, and it was developing into, I went out and I walked, the third time we had this morning come up, I actually walked away and I just went and sat in the sun. And I went, you know what, you're here for recovery. This is not about reliving the past. It is not about me developing an identity as my injuries. That is the last thing I want to do is, hi, I'm Carol with the broken this and the injured that and the, and because I'm too ready to use that as excuses for behaviors. And so now this is my excuse for a new behavior from walking away from those kinds of conversations when they come up. So it'll be an interesting weekend. Thank you.
I'm Mandy and I'm an addict. I've been in and out of the program for 6 years. I never took it seriously. I got real cocky, stopped going to meetings, and just about 67 days ago, I decided that was it. So I started over and I changed my way of thinking. I changed everybody that I hung out with. I hit a meeting every day. I got a good support system. And this time I'm really glad that I'm serious about it because the last time that I got high, I messed my motor skills up like really bad, and if I get high again, I know that I could die. So I take it one day at a time, and with that, I'll let somebody else share.
Again, my name is Lucy and I'm an addict. I I'm so glad I came. This is my first year. Thank you. I talk about growth and change. For so long, I allowed fear to plague my life. I've, just being afraid to go places and to do new things. Just fear the unknown, I guess. But I'm glad that in this process, and through faith and my higher power, who I choose to call God, my fears are lessened. I hear a lot of people that share, talk on just life and relationships, and that's what life is. I work in a field with the elderly, and my administrator asked me the other day, I was actually orientating a group of new employees. Thanks to this program, I've been there for 5 years. I can never hold a job prior to that. But she had me give a tour of the, an addict like me, a tour of the facility, and had asked me to explain what I thought that, the life of the elderly is like, And it was, for me, it was just like my life or your life, relationships, graduations, divorces, death, births, just life, everything that we deal with on a regular basis. And I'm glad through this process that my growth has been acceptance in all those areas, They say that relationships can be a very painful area, and not just the ones that are intimate with a significant other, but I mean the ones that you have to rebuild as far as the ones that you tore down, and my acceptance and growing in the areas that my children suffered, at the hands of my active addiction. And because I'm in recovery, because my life is getting better, I'm getting better. I cannot force, because I'm the parent and you do what I say, or I'm the authority, and, I'm a single parent too. So there's a lot of anger. I heard y'all talking about that. I'm struggling with that as well, the anger, because I can't control their decisions. Because all of a sudden that my life is getting better, and for children that never had any structure all those years, I want some, I want some principles and some values where there weren't any, they never had any morals, because I didn't. So acceptance leads to recovery, and I'm growing in that area that I can't, and I have found myself actually beating my children because I wanted them to do it right. You know what I'm saying? And I just surrendered quietly. I'll say maybe about 2 months ago, having getting some acceptance that with the help of my sponsor, that just like there's no model recovering addict, there's no model recovering children in this process. I want to go to the tables and share, I had something to do with my children graduating, and they don't do this, and and I want to look good, you know what I'm saying, because my life is getting better. I want the life without the work, you know what I'm saying? And I had to really get some acceptance, Gina, that I did a lot of damage, and there's a difference between parenting out of guilt and learning to parent, you know what I'm saying? Having some tolerance and some patience, really, getting some acceptance on a deeper level that I sent my kids through hell, and it's going to take a lot of work to, help them, you know what I'm saying? And I know that I cannot use no matter what. That's number one. You know what I'm saying? That's the best way that I can help them. And just continue and to do what it is that I need to do as far as supporting them. You know what I'm saying? Not beating on them, because that's not going to get it. It's not going to put it in them, And I was feeling real guilty. I felt terrible the last time I put my hands on my children, because they had went from spankings and discipline, because they're older and they're like 12 and 13, so there aren't any spankings. It's like I was taking all my anger and frustration out, things of the world that I don't have any control over. I want to put all that control, the gas and the foreclosures and, the garnishments. I want to put everything, all that anger is coming out on something that I think I can control, which is my children, and other things that I don't have any control over. So I'm guilty of that, but I'm growing. I haven't put my hands on my children, in 2 months, and I'm trying. It's painful and it's embarrassing. I'm ashamed, but I'm trying one day at a time. And like I said, I hear people share life, relationships, even those intimate ones. I have some acceptance, to where as I did, and I was trying to force the way that I think things should be, the way I think a relationship should go. But I'm growing. I truly am growing. It's only through this program and the grace of my higher power. I got a sponsor that guides me. The steps. They say if you stay clean, that you'll get better. You work the steps, your life will get better. So I'm glad I'm here. Thanks, Lynn.
We have approximately 5 more minutes if somebody would like to come up and share their experiences.
I'm Shannon Mack.
Shannon.
Hi, family. Last year, I shared something intimately with my sponsor and my best friend. And I had 11 years. And I relapsed like 30 days before the convention last year. Didn't tell nobody. Then I relapsed again, so now I have like 7 months. What do you do? But this is about growth and change, right? Next year when I get here, I'll have a 6-month-old baby. So it's going to be a really different change this year. I'm working the steps differently and have my flat book and all the stuff that I just stayed abstinent and not worked on anything, got miserable and used. I don't know, sometimes it brings about a more rigorous, not to tell anybody to go use, but, for me, I had 11 years abstinent, not 11 years clean. So, anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
I would like to thank our 2 main speakers, Bob M. and Ray E., and all of the other people that came up and shared so honestly with us your message. I'd like to end with a group hug and our serenity prayer.